Hey there guys, so we're taking a look at Dirt 5 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U with 8 GB of RAM. Now those 8 GB of RAM are running in dual channel. Now you're looking at the built-in benchmark right now running at the full 1080p resolution but with the lowest possible in-game graphics settings, which is a ultra low preset. Now the built-in benchmark running at 15 watt TDP is not exactly giving us a really good result here, since we're getting pretty much averages that are barely touching 20, though the 1% lows are at least close enough to that average, but it's really not enough to give any semblance of a decent experience here unless you're just really desperate to play this game at its full 1080p resolution. Just looking at the benchmark, it was a very choppy experience, and really I would suggest that you just don't bother playing like this unless, again, you're really desperate to get the full 1080p resolution. I really don't think it's worth it. It's just not going to be an enjoyable experience. It feels like you're playing a slideshow more than anything else. When you're getting a frame rate lower than even movies in theaters, then you know that this is going to be an overall very rough experience, though at least if you pay attention to the frame times, they are at least consistent, but they are consistently bad. The game actually does let you adjust the base resolution though, so you can pretty much drop the render scale down from the full 100%, which is the full 1080p, down to 75%. And by doing so, we actually do raise those 1% lows up above 20 now, being in the 22 range, and our averages do get up into the mid 20s now, being at around 26 to 27. But it's still not an ideal scenario, but it is at least far more playable than where we were at before. Things do seem a bit smoother, but I would still recommend just not playing the game like this. We are getting towards the edge of something that is far more playable here though, but it's still just not quite there. Those 1% lows are just still pretty brutal, and the latency that we get just in between frames is just so high that it makes doing precise movements very difficult to really execute. So still not the most ideal situation, though it is at least an improvement. But I would suggest maybe adjusting some settings even more. We can of course drop the in-game render resolution down to 50% and see if that can boost things up from where we're at right now. And by doing that, we do actually get our 1% lows just slightly under 30, and our averages are just slightly above 30. And the one thing you can say about this game is that it at least does keep a very consistent level of frame times, which means that there is no large variance in between the 1% lows and the averages. There's no major fluctuations. Things kind of stay relatively around the same range. And if we drop things down, of course, to 50% resolution, we now get to a range where I think it is pretty much playable. It's not going to be an amazing experience, but at least 1% lows being at 30 and our averages being just slightly above that mean that things look at least smooth enough to be able to play, though not the most ideal situation. But considering where we were at just the full 100% resolution, at least being able to get to a range where it is playable is at least an improvement. With that said though, the overall experience that you're going to get out of this is going to be at least passable, and I think if you're someone that's used to gaming on an APU, this is pretty much the most ideal situation. But we can also raise the TDP and see if that can actually let us squeeze some performance out, and it means that we won't have to drop the resolution down so low. And so going up to the 25 watt TDP and back at the full 100% resolution, the level of performance that we're getting is pretty rough, but at least our 1% lows are above 20 and our averages are in the mid 20s. Overall, we're pretty much getting the same result that we were getting at the 15 watt TDP with 75% resolution. Not an ideal gaming scenario, but it is at least a minor improvement over where we were at the 15 watt TDP. I would not recommend gaming like this, but it is something to let us know that there is at least somewhat of an improvement going on here, and we might be able to squeeze out some more performance if we start to drop the resolution. And it seems dropping down the resolution scaling to 75% actually does net us a gain in the 1% lows and the averages. It's still not ideal in the sense the 1% lows are below 30, being in the mid 20s, but our averages now are at the 30 range. So if resolution is something that you really care about, you can actually attempt to play like this. It's not going to be the most ideal situation, but if resolution is something that really matters to you a lot, this is pretty much the most ideal situation where you can get a balance of FPS and resolution. Just keep in mind that you do have to raise the TDP here, and depending on the system that you're on, the temperatures might start to get to some pretty dangerous levels. I'm pretty much just slightly under 80 degrees here, so it might eventually get to ranges where I would feel uncomfortable trying to play like this, but at least least from the amount of testing that I saw, it never really got to that 80-degree range. But it is something to keep in mind there. Of course, we can also drop the resolution down all the way to 50% and see if that nets us a gain here. And lo and behold, we actually do get a pretty nice gain here, where our 1% lows are now pretty comfortably above 30 and our averages are just slightly under 40. This is a very, very nice experience, and after playing the game itself actually like this, it really did feel pretty nice to play, and I would say it is the most ideal situation you can get out of this game on this system. You are sacrificing a lot here though, where your temperatures do get pretty high up there, though they are lower now than where they were at with the previous setting. One of the benefits being that the CPU really just does not get touched at all, so there's no real load on that. It's pretty much all just on the GPU, but this is really the smoothest possible gaming experience you can get on this particular game with this system. So if you're on a system that actually lets you raise the TDP, maybe dropping down the resolution to 50% and being at 25 watts of TDP might just be the most ideal scenario to get you a actually good gaming experience on here. Now, I understand that this is a pretty controversial game and that a lot of fans are not really that into it, but personally I did find it pretty enjoyable to play, and I'm glad to see that there are at least some settings that will let you be able to play the game comfortably. But anyways, I hope you found this video entertaining or useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.